Welcome to the X Corner. I'm here adding a little mutation to that superhero crew still. I'll be covering the X comics for the week of June 20th, 2018. This week we have 3 comics. Cable 158, Hunt for Wolverine Claws of a Killer number 2, and X-Men Gold number 30. Spoilers, of course. I really mean it this week. If you plan to read X-Men Gold number 30, stop right now. Go read it, weep, and come back to listen to this show. Now on to the show. We'll start with Cable 158. The writers are Lonnie Nadler and Zach Thompson, even though Marvel.com says it's Ed Brisson. They got this wrong during the whole run. I think someone should be fired. And the penciler is Jermaine Peralta. We continue Cable's trip down memory lane, this time back when he first created X-Force. He's training the team in their new danger room when Metis attacks in the form of the dead ex-New Mutant Warlock. The team at first thinks it's Cable's doing, but when he joins the fray, they realize they're in trouble. Eventually, Cable fights off the monster, but not before quite a bit of the team are injured. Cable refuses to explain what the monster was and just says he has to fight it on its own. The next issue concludes the storyline and the Cable series, so we'll finally get an answer to the mystery. Some clues were dropped here as Cable apologized to Metis for hurting him, somehow, so we know the monster's creation was Cable's fault. It was fun to see the old X-Force, and Deadpool even makes an appearance as a danger room enemy. He quips that he's just there because of the movie. And it's funny, because it's true. I'm actually just rereading the X-Force comic from back in the day, so I'm right here in this era. Except that this isn't Domino. It's actually someone pretending to be her. But let's just say the doppelganger was really good at her job, and did give Cable a nice pep talk during this issue. Even the whole attack doesn't really fit in with the time frame either, but still fun to jury-rig it into continuity. Overall, this has been a nice send-off to this Cable run, so we'll see if next month they stick the landing. 7 out of 10. Then there's Hunt for Wolverine Claws of a Killer number 2. The writer is Mariko Tamaki, and the pencilers Mac Chatter and Butch Geis. So Sabretooth, Deathstrike, and Daken have stumbled onto some sort of zombie test site. Daken is getting overwhelmed by them, but is saved and detained by some military types. Sabretooth and Deathstrike meet up with zombies themselves and decide to make a run for it without Daken, but their truck blows up. They find some shelter as zombies chase them. Daken wakes up and attacks his captors, then jumps out a window to escape. So we get 3 third-string Wolverines fighting zombies, and not even that well. All of a sudden, 3 of the murderous badasses in the world can't even kill some Walking Dead. Butch Geis supposedly did the art with someone called Mac Chatter, but the special feeling from the first issue is lost, so I have a feeling that it might have been just layouts, with Chatter finishing them. Not bad, but not great. The only good part was when Daken woke up and found his hands tied, and immediately popped his claws and started fighting. So I guess the only people worse than the 3 supposed badasses are the military toughs they're up against. I'm not a fan of the oversaturated zombies in media, so the only thing that could save this book is good writing. Unfortunately, this is the writer's first superhero comic, and I think it's obvious that she hasn't read many X titles before. It's like seeing the crib notes on characters without the actual deep characterization. Sabretooth and Deathstrike are threatening each other at every turn, and even Daken doesn't have his usual charm and cockiness. It makes me yearn for the better writing in Weapon X. As a tryout book, this is fine, but so far the worst of the Hunt for Wolverine minis yet. I was hoping for the second issue bump like we saw in Adamantium Agenda last week, but no dice. 5 out of 10. Lastly, we have X-Men Gold number 30. The writer is Mark Guggenheim, and the penciler is David Marquez. Okay, this is a big one. It's a soap opera roller coaster of emotions, so buckle up. We start this wedding issue with Kitty and Peter getting ready for the big day. Lots of nostalgia and jokes, but I'll get into all that later. So the night before the wedding, Kitty and her maid of honor, Ilyana, Peter's sister, are having a drunken heart-to-heart, and Ilyana says that she doesn't think Kitty and Peter are meant to be together. Amazingly, Kitty doesn't toss her off the roof, which might have been the first warning sign. More heartwarming stuff on the day of the wedding, and finally we get to the big moment. They say their vows, Kitty places the ring on Peter's finger, but then when Peter tries to do the same to Kitty, she phases. She says she can't go through with this and phases away. Later Peter finds her on their special hill, and they have a heart-to-heart where Kitty says she doesn't think they could last married with all that goes on in their lives. Peter accepts this, and it seems like they're good. Meanwhile, at the non-reception, everyone is in shock. Ilyana is beating herself up, and during a conversation between Storm and Gambit, where she says that you shouldn't get married to someone unless you couldn't live with being apart, Gambit gets a heartfelt look in his eyes. He marches over to Rogue, gets down on one knee, and then proposes. Not only that, after she says yes, he says they should do it right now since it's all set up for a wedding anyway. Kitty and Peter show up and give their blessing, and they do it. Rogue and Gambit get married. Marvel also announces in the back of the book that their super secret X book that they've been teasing is called Mr. and Mrs. X, starring Rogue and Gambit. Written by Kelly Thompson, who did their miniseries. Those sneaky Marvel bastards. They promised a wedding and we got one. So all that prelude to the wedding stuff wasn't about Kitty and Peter. It was about the people right next to them, Rogue and Gambit. It's like a rom-com in the funny books. The real prelude to the wedding was the Rogue and Gambit miniseries, which I am so glad I read now especially. In today's world, I'm amazed they kept this under wraps. No leaks that I saw, but let's go back over this issue because the nostalgia bombs were aplenty. We start off with the first 2 pages. The first is a retelling of Peter breaking up with Kitty after Secret Wars, where he met and fell in love with another girl. The next page is the exact same setup, but the night before the wedding as Peter remembers back on that night. Red flag. Even Kitty thinks the same thoughts about Peter's poetry, either consciously or subconsciously, as she did that past night. Then we get some great fun scenes at the rehearsal dinner. It's taking place at the X-Men's old hangout, Harry's Hideaway, which now that the mansion is in Central Park, must be hurting for business, although at least now it isn't being destroyed in a superhero fight every other night. We get Rachel hanging out with a young version and an alternate version of her mom. Old Jean is chiding young Jean about being too young to drink. Young Jean tells old Jean that she shouldn't be momming her, that she should be momming Rachel instead. Then we get Kurt talking with Jubilee as she tells him she's happy not to be a vampire anymore, and he asks if she misses the fangs like he has, even a little bit. We get Gambit floating the idea to Rogue about getting married, but she sloughs him off, saying he only wants to get married for the honeymoon. We get the 2 Beasts and 2 Icemen saying that they should start a team and call it Fantastic Four. Old Bobby says it's taken, but young Bobby says it's not in use at the moment. Burn. We get a surprise appearance by OG Logan, as he wishes the bride and groom well from a rooftop. We get young Jean and Scott, reflecting on their future marriage, which took place nearby, and they get weirded out by the whole thing. There are more, I'm sure, but I'm still flabbergasted that Marvel pulled this off. I said after the Rogue and Gambit series ended, that I'd read a series with them. Well, now I guess I get my chance. I've said it before and I say it again, that the X-Men are at their best when embracing their soap opera nature. And this hits that nail squarely on the head. You can read Avengers or Justice League if you want some big earth-shattering fight, but if you want characters and relationships and drama, with the occasional superhero fight, you come to the X-Men. I think the editors and current writers are finally realizing the special ingredients that Stan Lee, and even more so Chris Claremont, injected into these characters. This is an X-Men story, and this gets 9 out of 10. No Magneto or Havoc, so no 10. Well, that concludes another week. When I heard about the wedding, I kinda suspected it wouldn't happen. They laid enough hints to that end, but to be surprised like this is such a rare thing that I'm really overcome. The whole planning around it, all to manipulate the X-Fan into caring about Rogue and Gambit's relationship again, so that the story could actually land, is amazing. And it shows what Marvel, the editors, and writers can do when they actually care about a story. Now that the Fox-Disney deal seems to be done, I can only hope that they do this kind of work in the movies, so that everyone can see why I love the X-Men. Even made me almost forget about the Claws of the Killer series. See you next week.